Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting of Committee of Adjustment to order. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's Committee of Adjustment meeting. This is a meeting to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act of Ontario. The role of the committee is to review the proposals that are before it, consider the evidence provided, and make a decision based on the 4 tests established by the Planning Act. In order to conduct an effective and efficient hearing, we've adopted the following process. Tonight's meeting will be live streamed and available for future viewing on the town's live stream page, oakville.ca/live. People attending the committee meeting are to be courteous and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and others in attendance. We ask that all cellular devices be switched off at this time. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair. All persons wishing to address the committee are required to provide their name and address. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to all speakers. Any submissions beyond 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the chair. Any materials presented to the committee for viewing will remain the property of this committee. Persons seeking a deferral or withdrawal of an application will be invited to do so at the onset of the meeting. If a request for deferral is granted, it's the responsibility of the applicant to contact the Secretary Treasurer for the scheduling of a new hearing date. At the request of the committee, the applicant may be asked to provide a brief presentation and answer any questions that may arise. If the applicant has any concerns with the recommendations and proposed conditions found in the staff report, this is the time to advise the committee. All persons who wish to support or oppose the application will then be given an opportunity to speak to the committee. In the interest of efficiency, groups sharing the same view are asked to select a spokesperson, and individual speakers are asked to not cover the same points as those who have already spoken. The applicant will then be given an opportunity to respond to comments made by any interested parties and answer any additional questions of the committee. Discussion will then be closed and the matter will be taken into committee for discussion. Once the committee has made an oral decision, any person desiring a written copy must file with the Secretary Treasurer a written request for notice of the decision. A green sheet is provided on the table at the back for this purpose, and only those filing such a request will be given a subsequent notice of any appeal. Notice of the committee's decision will be mailed to the applicant and anyone who filed a written request not later than 10 days following the decision for a minor variance and 15 days for consents. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal. The last day for the appeal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding. The applicant and anyone who received a copy of the decision will then be notified by written correspondence. Considering I rewrote this, you think I'd do a better job reading it. For regrets tonight, Ms. McHale. Any declarations of conflict of interest on the committee? I see none. Is there anyone in the audience who is seeking to defer or withdraw an application tonight? Okay. Seeing none. So then we will proceed with the first application, CAV A078, Old Bronte Road. The applicant, please come forward and give your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Wayne Coutinho with Kozik Urban Planning, 277 Lakeshore Drive, Oakville.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application tonight? Seeing none, committee members, would you like a presentation? Do you have any questions for the applicant? Again, seeing none, I'd be happy to entertain a motion. Just while I think we're going to have Mr. Flemington, but just you've read the conditions proposed by staff?
Yes, I have. I've read the staff report and we agree with the comments and conditions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Having conducted my site visit and having reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as the town's written staff report, which I do note that is in support of. Also having taken into account the comments, that there were no comments this evening presented by the attendees from the public, and that there were no written or oral objections from the public. I am prepared to make a motion in support of the application as applied for, noting that it meets all the 4 tests under the Planning Act with the 2 conditions noted in the staff's report, that the mixed-use building and rear addition to the listed heritage building be constructed in accordance with the final approved site plan to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services, and 2, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction, and in cases where a building permit is not required, that the proposed scope of work has not been fully completed.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion to approve? That's unanimous. Your application is approved.
Thank you.
We'll now hear application CAB A079 220 Pinehurst Drive.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is David Brown, 3985 15th Street, Jordan Station, Ontario. I'm the authorized agent for the owners of the property at 220 Pinehurst Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none, Mr. Brown, you've read the staff report. Conditions proposed by staff. Any concerns?
The request for a landscape plan, Mr. Chairman, in my opinion, is onerous. However, in light of the proposal to prepare a landscape plan by my clients in any event as part of their rear yard work, it's not going to be something that we would have an issue with or concern in terms of providing that to the town as part of the approval process. I would submit to the committee that the application as it stands with the existing landscaping and fencing around the property does adequately address the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, but I am in the committee's hands and would have no issue should the committee impose that as a condition of approval.
Thank you. Committee members, would you like the presentation? Any questions? Seeing none, I can entertain a motion. Ms. Murray?
Certainly. Mr. Chair, having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as the town's written staff report, which I note that the staff is in support of, having also taken into account the presentation by the applicant this evening, and noting that there are no written or oral objections. I'm prepared to make a motion in support of the minor variances requested, with the requested conditions from circulated agencies. The proposed swimming pool, hot tub, and accessory building be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated May 2019. That a landscape plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction, and in cases where a building permit is not required, that the proposed scope of work has not been fully completed.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor, motion to approve? That is unanimous. Your application is approved.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
We'll now hear CAV A080 at 1214 Bridge Road.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Pasquale Ho from Organica Studio, 145 Birmingham Street. I'm representing the owners at 1214 Bridge Road.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience wish to speak? I see a hand. So, with that, sir, I think on the count of both, there's an interested party in the audience and staff have raised a question as to whether a potential additional variance may be required in their staff report. I think we'll need a presentation from you.
The additional variance for the front yard setback, if it has to be set back a bit further, that shouldn't be an issue. We have a lot of space in the back. That line was determined from what I saw from the bylaws, so I'm not sure if there's any additional.
Okay, so for the interest of the committee and the resident, if you could please take us through a brief presentation of what you're requesting.
Sure. So my clients are proposing a two-story home on an existing lot, which has an existing one-story bungalow currently. With regards to setbacks, we are well within the setbacks, especially the side yard setback and the rear yard setback. In fact, we've actually created a bit more space on one of the side yard setbacks where it faces the neighbor on the driveway side. We're actually in more. The old house was a lot closer to the property line. The only variance that we seek on this property is a GFA, gross floor area, of what was provided is 41%. We're seeking a 42.3%. And the reason beyond that is just for larger spaces within the house for bedrooms, family rooms. It's a large family, so they're requesting a little more space given the size of the lot and the size of the property. Having said that, the house itself is set back even in the elevations, and it blends in with the existing neighborhood. Even though it's a little bit of a more modern style home, it still maintains a pitched roof, and I'll just show that here. So the house is a little bit tiered in the fact that the garage is less than one story. It sets back with a green roof above. That's where the second story starts on this portion. And then on this side of the house, which faces these neighbors here, it has a sloped roof, kind of in line with a lot of the pitched roofs of the area. So the only flat portions are just on this portion of the house, but we're proposing the green roof for the very front portion of that. I'll kind of show them the floor plan. So where the master bedroom is, on the second floor, we are proposing a green roof in front of that. So it's a low intensive green roof, which doesn't require high maintenance, but it does provide benefits to the area of the house as well as to the environment. I think that would be, I don't know if there's any other questions.
Can you speak to staff's comments about their concern on the front yard setback? Why they think there's an issue and how you propose to resolve that?
To be honest, I'm not certain. I did meet with the staff to discuss, to go over some of the variances. From what I read on the planning bylaw, 7.5 is the front yard setback from the property line. If the house does need to be shifted even further back, that is fine. We do have a lot of space within the rear yard itself. The deck could be reduced and the house can be shifted further south, so that's not an issue. I'm not sure we're not even touching the 7.5 setback. We're actually within that, so the front porch is actually 7.74 meters from the property line. The actual house is 8.48 meters from the property line. I couldn't exactly address what the issue is there.
Thank you. Perhaps we could ask Brandon, if he could elaborate on that at this point. And I guess I'll ask you a question as well. The applicant's obviously chosen to proceed and not seek a variance. If the committee were to approve this tonight, would it be appropriate to sort of change the first condition to drawings to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning in case there is an issue?
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair, in terms of the front yard setback, based on the zero Suffolk zone and the existing front yard setback of the existing dwelling, the required front yard setback would be 8.75 meters, whereas 7.74 meters is proposed based on the setback to the front porch. Through review of the site plan and application as a whole with internal staff, it looks like there was enough room to have the dwelling shifted back to comply with the required front yard setback, but absolutely we can have the condition revised to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services.
Thank you. Committee members, any questions of the applicant at this time? Okay, thank you, sir. If we ask you to take a seat, and we'll invite the
No problem.
resident up to speak. If we get your name and address, please, sir.
My name is Vaughn Demers, and I live at 1208 Ridge Road, next door to the house in question. I have a number of questions or concerns. Do you know if a survey has been done regarding that property? The reason I ask that is because based on the survey map that I have from when I bought my house back in 58, from 58, the everything at the front of the house shows wrong, side of the house shows wrong, and one of the main ones is not even listed. Okay, my first concern is this dimension, is the dimension from the front of the house to the road. It says it's 9.31 meters. Mine says approximately 9.34 meters, and that works out to about 3 inches. The side of the house on their drawing shows 3.9 meters. My property shows 4 inches short of what they're saying. It should be, mine says 13 feet 2 inches, which was 4 something meters, and that's 4 inches off. So 3 inches on one side, 4 inches on that side, and at the very back, where I've got the 18 feet 5.5 inches, they don't even have that listed on there. And right now, the fence that was installed, not by me, but by the neighbors at that time, is 13 inches onto my side of the property. So that needs to be corrected. And there used to be 10 ash trees along that property line. The trees were taken down since the fence was put in. And when they took the trees down, they cut them, they leaned them against the fence. Now the fence is even further onto my side. And it's all shifted, it's all bent like this. I can't get by my part of my property because of that. The ground height at 1214 in relation to my property is higher than my property. My concern is rain runoff from that slanted roof and snow runoff, snow melt runoff. Where's it going to go? Right now it goes onto my property and I'm tired of it. And because of that, there used to be a tree that I could not put my arms around on that side of their house, on the east side of their house, west side of mine, which was on their property. They cut it down, say 30, 40 years ago. Cut it down even to the ground. Now all the root system has deteriorated. The ground is sinking, and part of my property, I've had to repair it twice. And every 2 years now I have to put more asphalt in there because it keeps sinking because of that dead tree that was there. No one's ever corrected it. The hedge that's on that property, it's a disgrace. It's onto my property. I can't cut it back any further right now. Instead of being like this, I have to cut it like this. And in the wintertime, it's awful because the snow goes on the top and everything comes leaning over. My car's got scratches on it because of it. If I don't keep it trimmed at least part way, it's a disaster. You can tell from the front of the hedge because nobody's looked after it for years and years and years and years. Main concern. Another concern is where the house is located. It's a main road. Bridge Road is a main road, the main traffic road for buses. On that side of the road, on our side of the road, there is no parking. The other side of the road, you've got the school, you've got the park, you've got the pool. Where's all the construction vehicles going to end up? Because they can't park in front of our houses. So that's a concern. And the other one is, when does construction expect to begin and when would it end? Because with that construction, with summertime rains, wintertime snows, you end up with a lot of mud and debris all over the place. Who's going to look after that? Because I've seen other houses around the area that they've done construction and they don't clean up after themselves. So that's a concern. Because I know I look after my property and the neighbor on the other side of that house looks after her property. And we don't want an eyesore in between, I know, until it's finished. When it's finished, it'll be fine. But during that period of time, what's going to happen? The house has been vacant now for 3 years. I have had to call every year to have that grass cut because it's been and the weeds are atrocious. So those are my concerns. Do you want a copy of this?
Yes, please.
Do you want a copy of the original survey map?
It's a spare.
Pardon me?
You have a copy for us?
Yeah.
Or
Yep. That's a copy.
Thank you. We'll ask the applicant to address your...
Pardon me?
We'll ask the applicant to address... There we go. We'll ask the applicant to address your questions, but I'll try my best on some of them
Okay.
right now.
So I sit down now?
No.
No?
Please stay there for now in case... So we will ask the applicant to address whether he has a survey. I note that your survey, you referenced the word approximately, so I'm probably a finer tuned system now than the original surveys. The fence on the property line, the condition of the fence, the maintenance of the hedges, they're really not items that this committee can deal with, but it would appear to me that this is an opportunity with this new house being proposed here to have a discussion between yourself and the applicant and have these issues rectified. This would appear to be the time, as work's being done on the property, to have your fence situation, if it's in the wrong place, to have that taken down. But that's not something really that this committee can deal with. With respect to the drainage, the applicant is going to have to provide a grading plan and have it approved by the town prior to them. It'll be part of their building permit process. And the requirement, to oversimplify it, is no property can drain water onto an adjacent property. So if the adjacent property is higher, and if it's still going to be higher, they're going to be required to put a swale in on the property line to ensure that the water is not running from their property onto yours. So that, again, the existing situation should be, well, that will be rectified as a result of a new house being there, because they are going to have to regrade the property. to stop it from draining onto yours.
Yeah.
Again, the parking on the street and the construction schedule will ask the applicant to address that. And so I've got a house next to mine under construction right now, and so I do understand the issues that you raise. I think I've generally covered what the main items that you've raised, but if you could sit down now, we'll bring the applicant back and ask
Okay.
him to address the issues that you've raised.
Thank you.
Try to take notes. Question about whether there's a survey, issue of the fence possibly encroaching onto his property, the condition of the fence, the fact that your property is higher and draining water, the hedge, especially when snow covered, well, I guess it's not maintained and it's falling onto his car, and then the question of where a construction vehicle is going to park and what is your construction schedule.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, in terms of the survey, there is a survey, brand new survey that has been completed. We can provide that. That's not a problem. The same company that provided the survey will also be taking care of the grading plan, as you mentioned earlier, in order to prevent any water from moving onto neighboring properties, of course. In terms of the existing fence, I don't know the condition of the existing fence, but the homeowners would probably want to get a new fence put in at this point if it's teetering and in rough shape. So I think that is something that we can discuss with the clients. I don't see there really being a problem, and the fence being put in the correct property line, of course. Same with the hedges. In terms of the parking, I can't speak to exactly where the parking would be, but obviously it would be contained on site as much as possible. The construction schedule is the clients would like to proceed as soon as the permit is available or issued, put it that way. So whatever length that takes, that is when they would like to start. Obviously, if it goes too far into the too close to the winter months, then they would start in the spring. But if
Do you have an idea of the overall duration of the construction?
we
9 months,
anticipate
12 months?
we do anticipate 6 to 8 months for constructions. It could be shorter, but generally that is what we anticipate.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, any questions arising out of the residents' questions and the applicant's response? Mr. Fleming?
Mr. Chair, I know that the neighbor had spoke about the slope of the roof, and that was with regards to the drainage issues. I think though that you addressed the drainage issues based on the swell, but I also heard that the slope of that roof is in keeping with like what the typical slopes are of other roofs that are peaked. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's only a 512 pitch, so it's not a very steep pitch. But it looks like it's steeper than what it really is, but yeah, it's kind of a shallow roof, put it that way.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir, you've had your opportunity to speak, and the applicant has the opportunity to rebut. I think the two of you have, if the committee approves this, the two of you have a lot to talk about in the hallway after this meeting. You've read the conditions that staff have proposed?
Yes, I have.
No issues with those?
No issues with the conditions.
Okay, with that, we'll close the discussion. I'll entertain a motion, and just a reminder of the discussion previous that if the committee finds favor with this, they may wish to amend the first condition to make the dwelling to be built in general accordance with plans to the satisfaction of the director of planning. All right, Cassie.
Thank Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having reviewed the materials, heard the submissions of the applicant, as well as reviewing the staff report, I am satisfied that the requested variance conforms to the tests of the Act, the four tests of the Act. I will be putting forward a motion of approval. I would note that the applicant has addressed those matters raised by the abutting property owner to my satisfaction with respect to those matters that pertain to the variance application, and I believe that there are other remedies, including the grading drainage work approvals that are required outside of this process that can address those concerns, and enforcement matters can deal with any parking that would occur that would be not consistent with the requirements of the road. So with that being said, I will put forward a motion of approval subject to two conditions. The first being that the dwelling be built in general accordance with submitted plans and to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning. And the second being that the approval expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued for the proposed construction, and in cases where a permit is not required, the proposed scope of work has not been completed.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion to approve? It's unanimous. Your application is approved, sir. And,
Thank you, committee members.
we hope you heed the committee's advice and speak to your neighbor on the way out.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
We will now hear CAV. We'll now hear CAV A081492 Valhalla Court.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Edward Brabenick. I'm with Brian Louis Architect, and I represent my client, Luciano and Petronella Ionescu, at 492 Valhalla Court.
Thank you. Is there anyone in? Finally. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none. You've read the staff report, you're familiar with and are okay with the conditions?
Yes.
Okay. Committee members, would you like a presentation? Any questions for the applicant at this time? Seeing none, may I have a motion, please? Ms. Murray, you, Richie?
Certainly. Mr. Chair, having conducted my site visit, Mr. Chair, having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written
Hit it again. There you go. Okay, it's got to turn red. Sometimes it takes a while. There you go.
There. Technical difficulties. Let's try it again. Mr. Chair, having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town's written staff report, which I note the staff is in support of. Having also taken into account that there appear to be no comments to the contrary to the project this evening, and no written submissions against. One support, we do have one in support of, from a neighbor, in support of the variance being requested. I would submit that the application for variance meets all of the four tests of the Planning Act, and that the requested conditions be met, which are that the additions be constructed and the rear gazebo and shed be permitted in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations dated May 30th, 2018, and that the approval expires two years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction, and in cases where a building permit is not required, that the proposed scope of work has not been fully completed.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion to approve? It's unanimous, your application is approved, sir.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
We'll now hear application CAVA 082, 250 Lakeshore Road and 89 Dunn Street.
Good evening. My name is Ty Farrow, 60 Pleasant Boulevard, Suite 801, Toronto. I'm the agent for Knox Church at 250 Lakeshore Road and 89 Dundas Street and Dunn. And these are representatives from the owner.
Thank you. I don't see anyone, but I'll have to ask anyway. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this application? Seeing none. Committee members, would you like the presentation? Any questions for the applicant? Okay, Ms. Murray. Sometimes it takes a few seconds.
Okay. I was wondering if you could go through with the plans where the
Could you speak into the microphone?
Oh, certainly. I was wondering if you...
It's not directed towards you. It's little things like that make a big difference.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I was wondering if you could share with me, go over where the variances are.
Sure.
I conducted a site visit today, and I wasn't entirely certain of the changes.
So in overall terms, what's happening at the church is really the first investment that's occurred since about 1950. The majority of the investment's happening on the inside, and it's been done for a couple of reasons. One's around accessibility, and that's both for wheelchair accessibility and more washrooms. But equally, what it's doing is upgrading a lot of the common and the meeting areas, really under an idea that this should be an asset for the entire community, much broader. And so with that, there's a couple things. One is air conditioning is being added to the entire facility. And so with that, there needs to be a power upgrade through Oakville Hydro. And so there's a little power room. So you can see from the plan, Lakeshore here, Dunn Street here. And so the main spire, you may be familiar with at this location. And so this is all of the existing building. And right here in the very corner, tucked back, I'll show you that on the plan in a minute, that's a little electrical room at the request of Oakville Hydro. And so running parallel to the edge of the wall, the existing building comes right out to the property line. And so beside it, tucked back by 1.5 meters, is a stair that goes up half dozen risers into the building at that point. So it's really tucked around the side, and certainly from heritage standpoint or anybody else, in fact, you really can't see it. And so that's just a doorway in. If you look at along Robinson, you may remember there's parking nestled up in the back. And so right now there's an access up a ramp that comes in really into the center of the plan. I'll show you that in a minute. But part of the idea is the existing kitchen is going to be enlarged, and so that'll both be, as an asset for people both within the congregation and outside, but it just has more offerings. And so what we're doing is we're adding a little stair here that comes up into the building, and again, the existing building comes out to the property line, curves itself around and along the edge, and so we're just tucking this tight up against the edge of it. So my sense is it probably won't be very noticeable because of the existing buildings out front. So if you look at the ground floor plan, presently there's the sanctuary and the spire at this point. The main hallway and circulation comes along here, and then it turns back to Dunn Street. What we're doing is putting an access going east onto a little landing and a stair that goes into the parking lot. And what that does is avoids the main traffic coming in through the where the kitchen area will be. This little room here, as you can see, is the electrical room, which is specifically for hydro, and it will only be accessed from hydro from the exterior. And so if you look at the elevations, you'll see there's a window here presently that'll be turned into a door and a little stair, so it's a fairly minor piece. And there's significant planting in that area, as you can see in the top area. In fact, behind this large tree, so I really don't think it'll be noticeable. In fact, the intent is that it won't be noticeable from its design intent. And then, as you can see on this is the south elevation looking north. This is that stair that comes up at that point. And in fact, if you look at the east elevation, there's a little door with side light and a stair coming up into it. So that just gets us into the main building and just clarifies the circulation and takes it out of the really where the black house portion. That helps clarify?
It does, thank you.
Pleasure. But it's an exciting, I think it's exciting, I think, not only for the congregation, but the intent, the church at this stage, the best way to describe it, is very frothy. It's got a lot of great programs that are happening, on really embedding itself, really opening its arms, I think, even wider than it ever has been. And so the investment is significant, and I think it'll be really exciting for the larger community.
Thank you, that's very helpful information. Any members, any other questions? Seeing none, can I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, having conducted my site visit and having reviewed the applicant's written application as well as the oral presentation provided this evening, and noting that there was one letter in support of, no letters in opposition, and no one from the public attending other than the applicant and its representatives. I am prepared to move a motion in support of the application as it has been applied for, noting that it does meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and that the conditions, the 2 conditions, that the renovations be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations dated May 30th, 2018, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
May 4th.
Sorry?
Just want to clarify the date.
I'm reading it from here.
Yes.
So it's 2019?
May 4th, 2019, I think is the last revision on the drawings.
Okay. So just amend that condition that the renovations be constructed in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations dated May 4th, 2019.
It's hard to read.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion to approve? That is unanimous. Your application is approved.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I just wanted to make one observation, which you probably don't hear a lot, but the process that we've gone through with the planning department, the heritage department, and the building department has been exceptional. We work in a lot of different areas, and they're very responsive, they're very quick, as helpful as can be. And I'm not sure if I should say it's unprecedented, but it's very rare, and I think it's important feedback to hear, and we pass that on to the councillor also. It's really an amazing place to build, so I just wanted to offer that as an observation that I think it's important to hear when great efforts and help happens in this process.
Well, thank you for that. It's always nice to hear positive feedback, and
It's rare, I think.
we'll assume that goes to your experience with the committee of adjustment as well.
I'll have to have one piece of the puzzle. I better amend that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Do we have minutes?
Yes, we do have June 11.
Any motion to approve the minutes of June 11th? Mr. Hardcastle? All those in favor? Minutes are approved. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Hardcastle? We are adjourned.
7.
It's a perfect job for Daisy.